Good morning. It's 1:56 p.m. Saturday in London. I just had breakfast. I got up at noon. That's predictable and a very good thing. My yesterday, May 9th, started in LA on Thursday at about 9, I think. We got to LAX, Los Angeles Airport, about 1 o'clock to park the car and check in for the 4:30 international flight. We didn't get to sit together for this 10-hour flight. I heard behind me, however, the music of loud laughter of Chris Carlson, socializing with passengers. We got to London at about 10:30 a.m. Wednesday, May 10th, London time. We rented a car. As we started to walk away, I expressed my relief to the rental agent that they drive on the right side in London. The agent gave me an estranged look and said in a heavy British accent, "We drive on the left side." Oh no! From London, England. Chris and I flew in last night, and I have rented a, what is it called? Citron. Never heard of it. It's a stick. And you drive on the left side of the road. I've never been to England. I've never driven on the left side. And I've driven a stick all my life, for most of it more than 90%. But never with my left hand, so this is going to be a first.
Put a little sticker on the windshield just to help you.
Oh, that's a good thing. Good thing.
Yeah.
So, let's go.
Okay.
We drove to the hotel. We drove to the grocery store. I bought $22 worth of groceries to last us and then me a couple of days. We drove back to the airport. I was the worst driver in London. This wasn't happening. Chris not only agreed, but he was insistent. I would be driving Chris 3 hours, leaving at 4 a.m. to board his flight in Vienna. It would be dangerous. I couldn't trust nearly 3 million lifetime miles of driving by osmosis on the right side of the road. That is so instinctive that it is autopilot. We turned the rental back in. I'll drive in Switzerland on the right. Having to send Chris out in the night on trains, buses, and air, while I would be sleeping like a baby, was unbearable. From Victoria Station in London, I thought this might be a good enough place to read you my story of the rest of Saturday. I'm right close to Buckingham Palace. That's about a mile away. I'll be checking that out later. I spent the rest of Saturday, after getting up at noon and updating my story. I booked a room in Geneva for Tuesday for 43 euro, about 60 US dollars. They didn't have anything available for Wednesday, but I'll have a car in Switzerland. There I'll check on Wednesday. I paid for 3 more nights at Trevellis in London, actually 35 miles out of London, for after Geneva. Chris will meet me there on Saturday. Saturday evening, I made calls to the Christian Science churches to make plans for church on Sunday. I reached a practitioner who gave me good directions on riding the trains in London. There were no offers to pick me up. I went to bed on Saturday at about 8:30. Sunday, I Ubered to Gatwick Airport train station at 8 a.m. It took over 2 hours on about 4 trains to get to 11th Church, Christian Science Church, at 11 o'clock.
Tours?
Oh, yeah.
Hi, my name is Brian Blanford. I'm first reader at 11th Church in London, and I'm here with Robin, and I'm showing him the exhibition we put together for the life of Mary Baker Eddy. We've got 18 frames, and they're done in a sequence around this basement area, and we got the license from the Mary Baker Eddy Library to use some of their photographic material. So let me take you first to the first slide, which is how she discovered it. Suffer the little children to come unto me and forbid them not. Then the next slide is the background of her childhood. And again, in her childhood, this is about her being widowed. That's a picture of her son. That's her husband. That's a very early picture, 1864. This is the episode where she fell, and that was a newspaper cutting that refers to that. And then we have the beginning of the healing process. This was the time when she was told by a doctor that she must write a book, and this is the origin of Science and Health. And this is the sequence of events, the incredible rapid sequence of events with founding the first church in 1879, founding it again in 1892, completing the building, and then the extension completed in 1906. And then we go to the this was about the healing, and very he that believeth on me, the works that I do shall he do also. The Massachusetts Metaphysical College with all the students, and this was her hope that the healing would be available to all the Christian denominations. And finally, we have the last few. Here we have an original and a special edition of Science and Health, which we've just been donated. And this is now a little bit about the manual, a bit about periodicals. Why is Christian Science a science? And then we have the tenets, and finally, what does healing mean? As I say, the permission to use this material came from the Mary Baker Eddy Library. And thank you for coming.
Thank you. I was 30 minutes late for the service. Afterwards, I had lunch with the second reader and a couple, nice elderly couple at the restaurant. That was a great 2-hour social event where I got good tourist information. The second reader then walked me to a local store to get a UK to US power adapter so that I can recharge my camera batteries. From there, I grounded myself at the train station for about 20 minutes in the enormous Victoria train station, where I would be boarding to get back to Corvallis Hotel, 35 miles away. I walked a productive local photo shooting hour and then headed back at 4:30. We're coming to you from Buckingham Palace in London. There
So you found
is there something happening today, do you know?
I think it's just closed today.
Oh.
Changing the guard will be Wednesday.
I see. It looks like there might be something happening, people standing in groups and so forth. But I'm going to explore a bit. I Ubered from the Gatwick Airport, 9/10 of a mile away. I got back to Trevellus at 8 and was in bed before 9 o'clock. Naturally, there were exhausting, time-consuming issues such as my ticket, mutilated in my pocket, ceased to work in the machines. I took a water and coffee break as well, and the trip back took 3.5 hours. Monday was my first touring and photo shooting day. I Ubered to Gatwick Airport from Trevellus and took the train to Victoria Station, which is very central to the tourist part of London. I spent about 6 hours touring and photo shooting, leaving Trevellus Hotel about 9 a.m. and getting back about 6 p.m. My photos were somewhat random on Monday, starting at Buckingham Palace and basically cherry-picking shots of London. I picked up tips on what to see on my next London photo shoot day, Friday, which would start with the changing of the guard at Buckingham Palace. I had a very good lunch on Monday, about 2 hours worth at Victoria Station. The flight was scheduled for 5:30 p.m. I Ubered to Gatwick Airport about 6 hours early and spent all that time at the airport so that I wouldn't miss the flight. I used some of that time to post previous updates and pictures that you've seen on Facebook. Gatwick Airport in London waits until 1 hour before takeoff to post gate numbers. You can't even go through security early. They herd people on board and take to the skies, leaving people behind with no apologies nor eye contact, and they charge you for another flight. They are not friendly people, for the most part. Whatever lends to increased customer stress and probably increased profit seems to be the motive. The screens finally showed gate 659 at 4:30 p.m. for the 5:30 p.m. flight. I hurried quite a distance with 2 camera cases and a bag of essentials to gate 659 and found no one there. I waited about 10 minutes and returned to check the screen. The flight was delayed to 6:15. I walked back to gate 659, still no one there, and waited quite a while. I walked back to the screen. The flight was delayed again, scheduled for 6:45 now, and the gate number is now 103. So I scampered back first to gate 659 to retrieve my bag of incidentals that I had left there, and then took a very long walk to gate 103. There was no one there either. I found a flight attendant. "Oh, your flight was 6:59, you missed that." There were 2 flights to Geneva, but not to worry, you can still catch the 8 p.m. flight. You need to go to the service desk. Service desk said, "I can take care of you. That'll be 112 marks. I don't think I should have to pay for this flight. Can you give me a phone number to call about that? Forgetting momentarily the improbability of completing this call or the understanding of the voice at the other end. There was no change of expression, nor was there eye contact. A dozen or so people around me there at the airport were nodding in sympathy to my story as I made this call on speakerphone so that I could hear it. I've been here for 5 hours to avoid missing this flight. The screens are ambiguous. They don't allow time for error. When did my flight take off? I was there. No one else was. One man came to my aid. He let me use his local phone, which is much easier than using an American phone in London. He found Chris Carlson in Bratislava on his WhatsApp application on his phone, which Chris uses. Chris is so much more worldly than I am. I heard his soothing, mentoring voice. Chris thanked this man for his stepping up and helping me. I could see that the man was moved by this. So were a dozen other witnesses. I bought the ticket. I got to Geneva about 9:30. I had a hotel booked. I was unable to call the hotel to advise about my late arrival. But they were supposed to have a 24-hour service desk. The car rental was still open. I rented a car. They do drive on the right side in Switzerland. The navigation on my phone said the hotel is 21 miles from the airport. I headed out on a want-to-be Switzerland freeway. Navigation on an American phone in Switzerland is slow. It's in English, but the street names are not. You miss turns. I missed the exit to the area of the hotel. I looked for an off-ramp to turn around for 11 miles. I came to a toll gate. It's the old-fashioned kind of gate that has to lift up to get through. I couldn't make it lift. I pushed a button and got a ticket. I put the ticket in a slot. It didn't work. I found a place for a credit card insert. I put a credit card in there. The gate still wouldn't lift. I found a call button. I pressed the button. I got French or something like that. And my engine died at the gate. My nightmares that I'd been having for a couple of months about this trip comprised a script that I followed. Missing a flight, Act 1. Act 2, stranded, sleeping in my car on the road in a foreign country. And Act 3, losing my phone in a foreign country. Eventually, looking at that screen at the toll gate, a money amount appeared. I tried my credit card again. This time it worked. Yay! And the rental car did restart. I think it has some kind of auto shut-off, this Volkswagen Golf, after it idles for a while. I drove a few miles, came to another exit, another toll gate, within just a few miles of the one I just went through agony to get through. It was a replay of the entire scene, this time maybe only about 15 minutes. I proceeded through and drove a few miles to an exit that went in and out of a truck stop, a 24-hour truck stop. If I was going to spend the night somewhere, this would be the place. There was a girl about 25 working there and an older man, probably a customer. The man was communicable enough to bring up a map on his phone, which helped me to locate the proximity of where I had to go. That helped. I exited the truck stop, drove a few more miles to toll gate number 3. This one didn't take as long. I was getting good at this. I didn't know how many miles or kilometers these 3 toll gates spanned before I found an exit where I could turn around. Had I been in America, I would probably have found a cheat route to turn around, but getting stuck somewhere on the freeway was not in my nightmare script. I got to the exit that I figured had to lead to my destination. I was being cautious with my phone battery. The rental car had a charging plate, but they don't necessarily support such heavy usage as navigation. I turned my phone back on. I had a 52% charge. The navigation led me to an industrial-looking area and a building big enough to be a hotel. But the navigation was leading in the wrong direction. I followed that for less than a mile, second-guessed the navigation, heading back to the big building. I didn't know the name of the hotel. The address I had was F1, some unpronounceable name of a city, and the word Geneva. As I approached the building, I was relieved to see F1 on the top of the building. That must be the hotel name. This had to be the hotel, even though it looks like a prison or a boys' reformatory. After the night I'd had, that's probably where I belonged. It's supposed to have a 24-hour desk. It's now 3:30 a.m. There was an iron fence and a heavy gate around the building and parking lot. There was a sign in English on the gate indicating that this might actually be a hotel. It was pouring rain. I shined the headlights and got out of the car to read the sign. If locked, walk to the main entrance and enter room code number and the door will open. As I read this, I'm wishing I had taken movies of some of the dramatics, but it was pouring rain, and the logistics of mounting my camera without a tripod were not worth it in the trauma that I was going through. I saw that there was a walk space next to the gate. I went to the main entrance. I looked at my confirmation on my phone. The only number shown was a reference number. It had too many digits and did not work as a room code number. So Act 2, the sleeping in my car in Switzerland part, came true. But I parked my car purposely blocking the gate, hopefully to get the attention of the management, because that's what I needed at that moment. I made the rental car tolerable for sleeping and literally slept until 4:30. Then I heard a commotion. A car inside the gate was indeed wanting out, a man and maybe his son. I told the man my story. "We're leaving early so you can have our room. Here's the key card." He pulled out. I pulled in. I slept well until 8 o'clock. It's the first time I've ever slept in a bed that was just slept in by strangers. At 8 a.m., I met the host and a translator who were very cordial and very reassuring. The host had told me through a translator to feel free to stay as long as I need to, even overnight if necessary. The booking agency had indicated that Wednesday night was sold out, but the host said he would take care of me if I need a place to stay. Wednesday was supposed to be my day to drive to the Alps and the Matterhorn. That was not happening because of the rain, which is camera prohibitive. You need a clear day and sun, maybe some clouds for quality pictures of mountains and terrain. I wasn't going to take over $5,000 worth of camera equipment in the rain, nor was I going to drive 350 miles in Switzerland after the night I had just had. But I did explore Geneva. First, I navigated to locate my stay for Wednesday night within about 1/10 of a mile, an apartment or condo in a huge building. I texted the host, Fernando, at about 1 p.m. He was at work, not expecting me until 8 p.m. He said his wife would let me in, but having at least found the general area, I was confident to come around 7 p.m. In the meantime, I would make the best of the day in Geneva. Most of what I explored was France, but I think I touched in Austria also. I Google searched Burger King and McDonald's. Each came up as being 175 miles away, probably London. But almost immediately I saw a Burger King billboard. That's how Google search was acting. I drove around the block, or tried to, but I never got back. Never found Burger King. That reminded me of Phoenix. I did find a McDonald's, however, where I got fries, salad, and coffee. I tried to charge my phone there, but nothing worked. The English-speaking employee said that I shouldn't leave my phone there unattended. I didn't want to hear about any security issues on top of everything else at that time. Then I went into a grocery store, nothing like Safeway. Their grocery stores are small and very foreign to an American. Being a vegetarian and everything in French, I couldn't check ingredients. I didn't trust anything in the store except plump, crisp-looking tomatoes that you can eat like an apple. Coming to you from a town called Crissier, I think it's France. They kind of come together right around here, and I'm going to be staying in close to Geneva. But this may be as close as I get to the Matterhorn, so I wanted to bring this update here. I finally have a European adapter to charge my phone. That's a great comfort to me. I have an Airbnb for tonight, but I'm having trouble getting a hold of the guy, and I'm scared stiff about that. So in the meantime, I'm out taking some pictures. There's pretty mountain in the background, which is very close to the Alps, and it may be as close as I get. I tried to buy just the tomato, but there was a credit card minimum, and that was the only choice for payment because cash entails a 30% fee, US cash. So I said I would take multiple tomatoes or add a candy bar if there is such a thing available, whatever it takes to make the minimum purchase. The young lady didn't understand a word I said, but through an interpreter, the end result was, "You can have the tomato." I was very grateful. I took a few pictures. I had to drive to a rather remote area here just outside of Geneva, but I think I'm on the France side still, where I've had real culture shock because they don't have American food, and they don't have American people that speak English. It's really major cultural shock. And my GPS is not accurate. It goes crazy. It's not accurate, and it takes me astray. And maybe the closest I'm going to get to the Alps or to the Matterhorn. So I want to tell a story about when I was in the 4th grade. My teacher, Mrs. Russ. Well, what is that? Okay. Taught us about Switzerland. I think she was born there, but then she grew up in Texas or something like that. She developed a very strong Texas accent, but she was from Switzerland. And the principal, Mr. McGovern, brought in a pulled-down map of Switzerland that really brought Mrs. Russ home. And we had a unit on Switzerland where we pretended that we went to Switzerland as a class. And so every day that we would have the unit on Switzerland, I think we'd start with the song that we made up, but the teacher made up, I think, the words or maybe the music, and the kids made up the words and maybe a little bit of both. But anyway, it goes like this. We are in Switzerland, you know, we're having fun in the snow, alley-o, alley-o, alley-o. We will not climb the Matterhorn, but we are sure to blow an Alpenhorn, alley-o, alley-o, alley-o. Did some commentaries for my movie and made it back to the area where the Airbnb was. Fernando and I texted and exchanged pictures of the building where he lives and the building where my navigation took me. I couldn't read, much less remember, street names well. I was like a 5-year-old. Addresses didn't make sense. But finally, on the 3rd level, Fernando and his young wife and 2-year-old stood waving at me. They were very gracious, gave me privacy and comfort. The room was great. The morning window view was spectacular. My dinner was 3 slices of healthy, hearty, dry bread and the best tomato ever. It really hit the spot. In the morning, Fernando's wife made sure I had coffee, toast, butter, and jam. Thursday afternoon was my flight back to London. I tried to get to the London Water Tower on the way to the airport, the highest water fountain in the UK, I think the world actually, close to the airport. I had time to do that, but didn't want to push it. The flight went smoothly, and I got back to Trevellus Hotel early enough for a good prep sleep for Friday, my biggest photo tour day. It went 12 hours from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. and covered the changing of the guard of Winchester Cathedral, many points at Victoria Centre and Camden, of which I have no information, but the buildings are spectacular, and you can walk among the pigeons.
Okay, jetzt komm her. Und überall drauf drüber, gell?
I'm a Jesus really big.
Hey, look, I saw it whenever when they stand maybe in the station at a
Well, at some point, you're going to take this whole facade. That's right.
you can back up a little. Pickpockets in the area. Charlie, move that baby. Right, that's anything in this. In the front. Oh, I see. I told him, I want over here.
da hinten stehen bleiben soll. Aber man hält was. Ist das? Ja. Das heißt, kommt da runter.
Cross it. Yes, so now there's a second group. The second group of guards will come from here. Once they go inside, everything is inside. To see anything in the middle, when you can get over there, I know it's busy, but you'll still see a lot more. There's a lot more to see. No, he's on the inside. You'll see him as you get further down. You'll see him. The gate is very small, but you can get through. You'll see people.
Co powiedział Alan? Ale powiedz pełnym zdaniem, bo nie rozumiem.
Next.
Regardez, c'est bien.
Mais je pense qu'à
C'est bien, mais en fait,
Non, tu dois sauter immédiatement.
il doit avoir des mecs qui se tirent.
Ah, poszedłem?
Ja, dat is goed.
Then I was on a couple of trains to the London Bridge and Tower of London. It was spectacular, within less than a mile of the train. Just a little walk around the block in the town or the city of Croydon in England, very close to London. Buildings are quite incredible. I don't know for sure the town, whether they call it London Bridge or just the stop, but we are on our way on foot. It's about 5 minutes.
Se le puede enterrar, ¿no?
No, you do not. But I think it's more like you need to go across.
We've been looking at the London Bridge and we are approaching the London Tower Bridge up ahead.
تعالي كده عشان انا واقف تاني. انا عملت البدع عشان خلاص كان مرتب هنا.
On the walk back, there was an old town with outdoor things happening on this Friday night, such as a wedding and a concert.
These really good 7-hour trips. When we come back, it's 16 hours. So that's when I'll be
I'm standing here at the top of the Tower of London, the tallest building in the world, I'm told, or maybe the tallest in Europe, but I think it's in the world. I bypassed the Empire State Building for $38 to ride that elevator because of time constraints, and maybe even not money constraints. I just didn't want to spend that. But for London, and for what I've been through on this trip, I certainly deserve this, and there may not be another chance. So I spent the money, and I think it was more like 60. I got to the train that would take me back to Gatwick at 9 p.m., tired, and fell asleep on the ride. It was about a 20-minute ride. I awoke to the speaker announcing stops. I asked a man, "What stop is this?" "Gatwick." I grabbed my 2 camera cases, forgot my phone plugged into the charger on board, and scampered to the door. It was closed. The man said to push the button. It might still open. I couldn't find the button. The man jumped up and pushed the button for me. The door opened. I literally jumped the threshold in case the door should try to close. I walked away, relieved, congratulating myself on the great productive day that I had had. When my hand entered my empty pocket, I became hysterical. I ran up and down the dock to find an attendant. This was London again. I found an attendant who, without expression or eye contact, directed me to a service desk. They took a report of the start and end point of the train, the time, description of the phone, and the approximate location of the phone on the train. There would be a search of the train. They told me to sit down there at the airport and wait for 30 minutes. It took about an hour. They had not found it, but they would do a more thorough search at the end of the run. The man told me to check back at 3 a.m. for Nightmare Script Act 3. I'd already figured that I would be spending the night at the airport, But another employee, a nice lady, stepped up and offered to help me with phone calls. She said, "Don't come back at 3 a.m. They will notify your hotel, who will relay the information to you. Get some sleep." I spent about an hour trying to find a way to get to Trevellus. I couldn't book Uber without the app on my phone. I went to the taxi booth to try to book a taxi. That's off our list because the road is bad. We can't go there. I said, "Uber has taken me there and back 5 times, no problem. There's nothing wrong with that road." Expressionless and insensitive, we don't do service on that road. Then I went to the Uber pickup to try to book directly with a driver. I talked to 4 drivers. They don't book independently. So I slept in the car last night. Now I'm sleeping at the airport. At 8 a.m. Saturday morning, I went to Norse Terminal to confirm my flight departure time of 10:30 Sunday morning. I took a taxi to Trevellus Hotel. Yes, they drove me. Nothing said about the bad road, which is not nearly as bad as Tonsey Road, and about a 1/10 of a mile, about like my driveway, very walkable. And I booked it through a lady at a different taxi booth. Nothing was said. The fare was $30. I'm not sure, or 30 something. I'm not sure if that was dollars or not. I talked to the Trevellus host, very nice man. This was the second paid hotel reservation that I was not able to uphold. I had the rest of the day to rest up for 10 hours on the plane and the same amount on the road driving home from LA. The host came up with an old-fashioned alarm clock for me to use to get up at 6 o'clock for my taxi Sunday morning. I went to bed about 2 p.m., woke up at 6:45 p.m., but I thought it was morning. I missed the taxi. I jumped up, grabbed some clothes. I ran outside to look for the taxi. I picked up the taxi phone line and booked a ride immediately. The driver was there in 5 minutes. The driver said the ride was 90 something. The taxi was 30. No, 90. So out came my credit card. I went to Norse Terminal to get my boarding pass. "You have to wait until tomorrow morning." "I can't. My flight is this morning." "What time is it?" 7:15 in the evening. Did I just interrupt a crucial night's sleep and pay $90 to get a taxi to take me back to the airport? I'll have to sleep here again. I don't want to miss this flight out of this nightmare. But that would be 15 hours sitting in a chair after I did about 8 hours last night. When I did the math on the number of days and hours without quality sleep, which was approaching 36, I decided that was not happening. I booked a taxi back to Trevellus. It was the taxi representative again that I had tried to book the day before who wouldn't send a taxi out. "Do you remember what I told you?" "Yes, and I've taken 2 taxi rides since then and 5 Uber rides prior." The agent told the driver who was standing right next to him, "Don't drive on that road." I told him he's walking. "Once you get to that road." I said, "I'll walk it. It's the length of my driveway. I'd have done that last night at 3 o'clock if I'd known it was that short." I was very relieved when the host of the Trevellus Hotel went to bat for me when I told him that I was charged $90 for the taxi fare, and he immediately picked up his taxi line and called in because they are affiliated together and said, "My customer's right here," and he said he was charged $30 this morning and it was charged $90 this afternoon. I'd like to know why. And he held the line for a moment and then said thank you and said to me, 19, not 90. And it was a dialect thing. It's 19 is how we say it, and he said 19, which sounded a whole lot like 90, so that was a relief. Sunday, however, was like clockwork, smooth as silk. I had the 6 a.m. taxi reserved and got the boarding pass at 7. I watched the North Terminal for 90 minutes, anxiously watching for Chris. He had preceded me, however, at the terminal and had been tending to business on his computer, out of my sight someplace there at the airport. He would be meeting me at the gate, but I was worried about what I would do if I didn't find him. It seemed like that would be the worst thing that could possibly happen. Even worse than not having my phone. But he showed up about 5 minutes after I got to the gate. And once we were together, the rest of the story is like a storybook. Though we did not have seats together on either flight, the 2 passengers on my aisle happened to move to other seats. And after about an hour, when it looked like they weren't going to return, I went to Chris and asked if he wanted to move over and sit with me. He said to check with the flight attendant first, which I did, and we sat together and talked nonstop for 4 hours. Finding the Honda and long-term parking would have been another adventure with me alone, but Chris led us exactly to it, on a shuttle to a lot off grounds, and about $40 cheaper than LAX long-term parking. Chris did most of the driving home, and we made it in record time of about 8 hours. Most of my LA drives have been running 12 to 15 lately with traffic and other obstacles like forest fires and such. Chris referred to my story as the worst vacation horror story I have ever heard. My brother-in-law, who is now 90 years old, had the best take of all. I agree with Chris, but it was worth it. I'm glad you went, and that's my sentiments exactly. Good morning. For a last walk in London. The plane leaves at 10:30 this morning. It's about 5:20. The taxi is going to get here at 6 o'clock, and I actually have have been very well rested because I had 2 nights sleep in a row, and that's because coming in from Geneva back to London, I ended up spending the night at the airport because I couldn't get a ride. I lost my phone on one of the trains getting back from my photo shoot, and so I couldn't book Uber. I didn't have the app, and the taxi had the road that leads to this, which is actually the driveway, which is about like my driveway, and very rough, about like Tonzi Road. And it was on their do not drive list, so he refused to take me. Later, after the night was over and after I slept reasonably well in chairs, I learned to sleep sitting when I couldn't lean back. And later in the same day, I went back to a different taxi booking station at the airport and talked to a lady who had no problem booking me. And they drove on the road here. I'm going to show you a picture of that when I get there. It's really ridiculous because there's roads like that all over the place. And I've driven on way worse roads. Tonzi Road is about twice as bad as this here. So anyway, after the one night in the airport, and I got my taxi, $30 to get back to the hotel. And I got back in about, I think it might have been about 9 o'clock or something, maybe 10. And I slept pretty solid till about 1 or 2 o'clock. And then I booked a taxi for, I booked a taxi for this morning at 6 o'clock, which I'm going to be catching here shortly. But I woke up from my heavy sleep. I went into a loss of presence sleep level where when I woke up, it took a moment to reestablish where I was. And I saw daylight and I looked at the clock, 6:45, and I thought I'd missed my taxi. I thought it was morning. And so I quickly ran to the taxi phone at the office and called and told them I missed my 6 o'clock taxi. I need a taxi immediately to get to the airport to catch my 10:30 plane. And so they brought a taxi out and I got to the airport. And this guy, he told me $90, kept saying $90. And it had been $30 on the first taxi earlier the same day. So I went into the airport, I went to the check-in to get my boarding pass, and the lady kept saying, well, you have to come back tomorrow. You come back tomorrow, you can't board this early. And I said, well, the flight leaves at 10:30, that's 3 hours. How is that too early? And she says, this flight is like 15 hours. And I said, well, what time is it? And she says, 7:15 evening. And I'm like, oh no, I did that. I have many times in my life, half a dozen at least, woken up from a nap in the evening and thought it was morning. But it has never lasted any period of time. But with the disorientation of being in a foreign country, it can have a different perspective. So I spent $90 to go to the airport. And my choice now was whether to sleep another night in the airport. That was my first thought, because I was at the airport and I don't want to take a chance of missing that flight. And this would assure me of getting it. But I'd be there twice as many hours as I had been the last night, and so that'd be 2 nights in a row sleeping in a chair. So I went back to the taxi to ask how much it would cost. I was hoping, and I told them about the $90, and they were shocked. They said that should not be. I said, well, I'll let you know momentarily whether I decide to take a taxi back to the hotel or just wait around till the flight. And as I sat there, I realized that having paid for the taxi at 6 o'clock this morning, the chances of getting a refund, there might be pretty good, but there's a chance that they wouldn't refund it. So I thought my best option would be to pay the lesser price, pay another 30 for a drive back to the airport, which I did, where I went back to bed. Yeah, I got back about 8 o'clock, went to bed. I think I went to bed about 9. Slept solid until about 1:30 in 90-second increments, waking up and then going back to sleep. And the 1:30 was the last one of those, and I was pretty much up and turning and just laying there the rest of the night. I got up and showered at 20 to 5, and I'm here and ready in plenty of time doing a brisk walk. In the background, you can see the road that the taxi people, at least the one man, I think it was his verdict, because the other driver was going to take me like the one did earlier in the day. And he says, don't drive on that road. I already told him he has to walk the last short distance, which we've walked most of it right now. It's only about it's about the length of my driveway, about 1/10 of a mile. So I'm going to turn around and we will walk back, and I'll just sit in the chair. Let me find that road there for you. I think it should be on that side. and wait for the taxi, and then the next hurdles will be to find Chris, who will be arriving about 8, and he'll be going to the check-in and so forth. I'm hoping to find him before going through security, because once you're in security, it's pretty hard to get back out again. And if I go into security and don't see him, then I'm into another of the many panic levels of this trip, which has been, to this point, really the culmination, despite all the great glorious things like yesterday in London Bridge, has really been the culmination of all my nightmares of the last several months. Just about everything frightening that could happen has happened. So I'm apprehensive and anxious about finding Chris. And then I've got to find my car at the LA airport, because I had my notations as to parking information, location, and a picture, I think, on my phone. And I think Chris has information like that, or in his phone or his memory. So finding my car in LA is the next and final hurdle, and I'm very much looking forward to getting home. You can see behind me the sun has just risen, and it's barely 5 o'clock, and that's because London evidently is on the eastern edge of the time zone. Once you cross the border into Switzerland, you're an hour later.
You're here.
We made it back.
You're in one piece.
We made it back intact. So,
Okay, good.
So-
I was worried about you.
well, I worried about me, and I also worried about you.
You edited that film together pretty quick, though. It's only been not quite a month since, just about a month.
Well, considering Mayberry Man took 1.5 years, that's pretty good.
Good job.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what was the defining moment in your trip?
Well, it might have been when I almost backed out of when I tried to back out of going to Switzerland, because that just wasn't working in my mind. And, that was my biggest worry from day one, I think.
Mhm.
And it proved to be justifiable worry, because what actually happened was probably worse than what I worried about. But you remember when I called you?
Mhm.
So what were you thinking?
I was in I don't remember. I was in my house, or the Airbnb I was in, and the phone rang, and it was pretty early, I think, still in the morning. Wasn't quite 10.
It was. I think it might have been. You were an hour later, I think.
Yeah,
So I think it was like 7 my time.
yeah. Some things that cost a lot of money, you're just kind of committed to. Like it's not so easy to just like cancel something like the day of.
That's certainly
For a
a
flight.
prime consideration.
But now that we look back on it, you would have lost the cost of that flight anyway. So maybe I was wrong to tell you.
well, the thing is, I was
But
worried.
you would have lost your car rental too. You would have lost your flight back.
I did.
Looking back on this trip, do you wish you had bought the $250, $300 ticket for the full week of Starmus?
I struggled with that from day one, and the factors influencing what I should do I guess we're twofold. Initially, I was going to just go with you because that was the whole plan
Yeah.
to go with you. We talked about that 2 years ago. But then well, two things. When I saw how busy you were going to be, and you were kind of, outlining what I think you talked about 4 hours of sleep a night, and you pretty much called that right, I guess.
I didn't actually sleep for the first 4 days. I
I would have been, if I was there, I would have done the sleeping.
Yeah.
But so I was worried about that, and I was also thinking, I'm over here. I think I would be in Chris's way anyway. I'm not really that into the Starmus thing, although I would find it interesting, but not several $1,000s worth interesting,
Oh,
So if I'm investing the money, why don't I just do what I want to do? Let Chris do what he wants to do, and we'll fly. That was my thinking.
I got the sense kind of early on that you weren't sure how engaging or fun Starmus was going to be without me, like the different talks and the conferences and your experience at the festival as a ticket goer. And that compared to all of Europe and all like the wonders and the things that it had to offer, you would almost kind of prefer that route.
Other things being equal, yeah, I would certainly have gone just to go to Starmus with you. And like I say, it didn't look like it was really going to work that well.
Well,
But it probably would have worked better than it worked. I'm sure it would have worked better than it worked.
it's a beautiful city, project city in Slovakia. You would have probably gotten around okay. Tell me something that you didn't talk about in the video. Some food that you ate, some little restaurant you stopped at to get a drink. Did you get any like cold beverages while you were there? Did you grab a coffee anywhere that was nice?
I had coffee a couple times at the airport. I had a very good meal at the airport, surprisingly so. I wasn't expecting a whole lot, but they actually had a vegetarian plate, and I ended up with a salad with a lot of good stuff in it. I had a steamed version of pretty much the same thing. We went out someplace with the church group afterwards, and that wasn't very impressive, food-wise.
England is not known for its cuisine.
Okay, maybe that's it.
What was your experience of even London as an English-speaking country against what you thought it would be like?
I was expecting better behavior from the natives, put it that way. I was surprised because my trip to Japan, they were so friendly. They really treated me very well at the airport. And Ataro's family was wonderful. So, that was my overseas experience. And England compared to that was not bad at all.
Aside from Scotland or Venice or Geneva, was being closer to Europe, did anyone give you any travel suggestions or thoughts on other countries that you heard about for the first time?
I sought that out initially, and I was expecting a lot of things from people at church that were, going to advise me and give me all these guidelines, and that never really happened. And I went there just about as confused as I was from day one as to what I was going to do there. So I kind of learned my way around as I went around, and by the end of the week, I was starting to feel, I wouldn't say at home, but livable in London. I could relate to London a little bit, learning the city a little, like the city a little.
Yeah. Give me a sentence or two sentences in your best British accent now that you've been there.
Let me tell you a story. This is a good story about the exit. I was talking to this guy on the phone. I was asking where I could get an adapter to make my chargers work for my phone locally in England. And so he gives me the name of a store, which I think he was saying Henry Bogan. I think that was the name of the store. But I had to ask him like 4 or 5 times to repeat Henry Wogan, and I never did get it. So I said, can you spell it? Well, that didn't really help that much because every syllable they say sounds like it's like an eh and an oo. So spell it for me. You mean B like boy? Yeah. No, that's not BH. You mean E like every? Yeah. Okay. You mean N like Nancy? Yeah. And it went on like that. So I got Henry Bogan, and I'm probably not even close to what he said.
Yeah. So how do you? So now you give me a sentence in your best English.
Kind of invert the sentences a little bit, like, to be sure, they'll say the expressions like to be sure.
In it.
What?
They'll end a sentence with in it. That's kind of right, isn't it?
Oh, in it. Yeah,
In it.
yeah. Not to, instead of saying, I don't want to do this, not to do this, not to do this.
Oh, that's a nice way of
Yeah.
approaching it. Yeah.
Right.
Do you think you could like cleverly conceal yourself in the London population after a certain amount of time, or do you think you would stick out like a
I would stick out like an American. I don't think that'll ever change.
What day overall would you say was the calmest, most relaxing, most peaceful day?
Friday until I lost my wallet. I mean, I was going to go home.
Your phone?
My phone. I was going to go to the hotel and I was going to sleep peacefully and I was going to like that all night thinking about the great things that happened. And at 15 hours, a 15-hour day, and I withstood it. Now I need a nap, and I was looking forward to that, a good night's sleep, and that didn't happen.
So who should we send this video to try and get you like a free vacation?
Well,
do we send that to EasyJet? Do we send that to an embassy somewhere? Because you've been through a lot. Like, I feel like anyone who watches this will be like, wow, like, how can we make it up to this guy?
I would send that to maybe the people in Switzerland who would like to outdo the British.
Okay. Did you have a better time in Switzerland?
I did. I mean,
you were mostly in France.
They were, yeah, and they were more foreign to me than the British were. The British at least spoke the language somewhat. But and I didn't have that much of a dealing directly with any of the residents there on the Switzerland side that much, not like I did the English. So I can't say for sure, but I mean, Fernando was good to me, the host, over there. The people at the F1 hotel were good to me.
Yeah, they would have.
I slept in the parking lot. I mean, they could have not liked that, but they were just fine with that, and they were there to help me. So,
last question. We almost spent more time in the air than we did on the land. What was the experience for you? Were you able to sleep on the planes some? Were you comfortable? Did you eat on the plane?
They didn't serve free food on the planes.
That was kind of disappointing.
That was it, because I've never experienced that, but we did get cheap flights.
Mm-hmm.
I slept probably better than I ever have on a plane. I did okay.
They charged you up for your bags, though.
They charged for the bags, yeah.
It was kind of unfortunate,
but the flights were cheap even with that extra charge. I would have expected $1,250 or $1,500 instead of like $700.
Would you just fly with your cameras next time and just buy clothes once you get to wherever you're going?
If I thought I could make that work, I had, this being my first trip there, I wanted to make sure I had the camera equipment that I wanted to have, and I was going to take a monopod and extra stuff like that. And
do you think you overpacked or underpacked?
I could have done it like you're saying, and if it was a trip that
my saying is maniacal. I wouldn't recommend that for anybody.
Well, I can do that, and I can relate to that. When I go to my Tahoe trips, that's pretty much how I do it. I've got a bag ready to go. I go home tonight, grab my bag, and I'm off for Tahoe. And I don't take pajamas or a change of clothes. I just make sure I've got my essentials for hygiene essentials.
Good.
Cameras. But it doesn't matter on those because I've got a car. I can take whatever I want.
If you had to give yourself one piece of advice and you had a time machine, you could time travel and you could talk to yourself in LA before you left from the hotel in LA, what would you tell your future self? You're about to fly to London.
Yeah.
Remember this one thing.
It's the same kind of ultimatums that I actually had that I wasn't able to follow, and that is to book ahead, plan ahead, make sure you know point A and point B and how to get there. But I didn't know how to do any of that.
And so, in terms of lessons learned, we've got memories made. So, what would the lessons learned be?
I think with the Switzerland thing, and again, like I say, like I just said, I tried to do this. I would like to have had, in fact, I looked for a plan where I could do my Matterhorn tour in a day, but I couldn't find a day. I could find a week, but I couldn't find something for a day.
So you're looking for more like guided tours.
Well, I don't really, normally I don't go for guided tours, but I would have on this if I could have found something for maybe $800 that would have taken me for a day to some points on the Matterhorn, taking me up, and I could get some scenics and walk a little bit. And I would have done something like that.
That would have been nice.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for your time.
Well, thank you for your time.
Overall, your experience of your trip was?
Like you said, the worst vacation story I've ever heard, but it was well worth it, and I'm glad I went.
Good. And how have you changed upon arriving back? What was the experience of being back home? How did this trip change you, Roland, as a person?
Well, it took me about 2 weeks to wake up in the morning and know where I am.
Jet lag.
Am I still in London? Do I have to try to find a train or a plane or catch something, to...
Will the taxi pick me up at
That's
my
right.
driveway?
That's right. So that was pretty much it. But as a person, no. I mean, I was going to do another trip, as you know, to Birmingham, Alabama and stuff like that. And I was kind of apprehensive after this trip, and I found a good reason for not going, and which was my glasses. It's a very good reason.
Do you feel wiser?
So hard to answer that. I'm not very good at learning lessons. I go out and do the same things over and over.
Well, travel is very healthy for the
If I
spirit.
trip over something on the sidewalk, I'm going to trip over it several times.
Do you wish you had done this sooner in your life?
Well,
You spent a lot of time in Nevada and like the American Southwest taking photos.
so
Any of that,
would I have done this trip at age 38? You might be asking.
or do you wish you had started traveling to Europe earlier in your life?
No, probably not. I mean, my life has been good. I've worked hard. I've accomplished things, and that's always been my goal, to make sure that I'm accomplishing something and not letting time go by and not accomplishing stuff. And I have accomplished plenty.
So we have the United States, North America. We have England, Europe. You've been to Japan. There's more Europe. There's South America. There's China. There's India, Africa. Any places that you feel like?
Well, South
Australia.
America, and maybe the Central America, like Panama, would be interesting, but not to spend a lot of time and just to go there. If I could do a cheap flight and just go around the world and just do hops and do it like in the movie, like in 30 days, I would probably do that. Alaska's high on my list, the North Pole area, where the sun doesn't set or doesn't rise, to see those kinds of things. That's pretty much what I want to say.
I will help you look for flights and hotels all around the world, and we'll see how fast you can do that.
Okay.
Yeah?
Okay.
You want to make a list one day? We can do that.
Okay.
Okay.
Maybe we'll do that together.
You should have a companion. I know where I'm going next.
Well, that's true. That's true. I should have a companion.
Maybe Laurel will be down.
Yeah. Normally I like traveling alone because I can manage myself. I don't have to, budget my time with someone. What do they want to do? What do I want to do? I can stop, I can start, I can go where I want to go. I can do silly things. I can do off-road stuff and like that. But I have seen firsthand the disadvantages of being alone, and certainly the advantages of having someone with me. And those advantages are huge in Europe.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think you're off to church.
Okay.
Yeah.